And there's obviously caverns and further tunnels that go back there.
But as we were pulling back, there's a small cove near there. We noticed another one of these sea caves. Eric and I went a little bit closer and realized that little hole was the opening to a deeper cavern. So another cave inside the cave.
There's something there. I was always trying to get to the ocean. I don't remember it, but I've heard stories that I just would run into the water. I was a baby in diapers, and my dad would let me. He was, scuba diver when he was very young. My mom, she thought it was good for me to be in the ocean. I think that she just saw that I lit up when I get in the waves, even just getting tossed around as a little kid with my dad holding my hand and stuff. I did not start surfing until the mid-'80s. Surfing at short sands is nice for a couple of reasons. You're protected from the wind, from both directions a little bit, and the wind will mess the waves up. That's why it's so nice on a paddleboard, right? Like today there were 1 and 2 foot waves, which that's really not a lot of fun on a surfboard. But a paddleboard, all day long, Everything else goes away. And you're so in that moment. I'll go there any day I can. It's thrilling. And it's so exciting. And it's that danger thing is there, I mean, most people can't get out there. They can't get through the breakers. You have to hit the waves right. If they're big at all, you need to hit them at 45 degrees. You have to be situated. When you're not on your board, you have to have it in the correct place. You need to try to get on your board as quick as you can, get into that sweet spot, and just ride these things, When I go through the breakers, I wear a helmet. And when I land, I wear a helmet. And when I get close to the rocks and the lands out there, I wear a helmet. I'm not so much worried about a wave hurting me there or a wave bashing me into or anything from the waves. I'm worried about stuff falling, either the cave collapsing or just the scree that is constantly coming down. Every day there's any wind. It's dangerous. Yesterday I got pelted with rocks. It didn't hurt, but it scared me, you know. And if I wouldn't have had that helmet on, it would have cut me. Flipping is nothing. It happens all the time. It's when you lose your board and your paddle. Now you have to find two things. So I've been stopped by 4-foot waves right there before. Just, you know, my leash came off. I lost my paddle at the same time, and I was in deep water, but the swell was, you know, like 4 foot. Not super deep, couldn't touch. And so I expended a ton of energy trying to get my paddle and my board. And when I finally got them, I just started to return to, my board had been flipped over, and I just left it flip over because it's got all that gear on it. So that when it flips over, that becomes like ballast. Finally, I was so happy when I touched the sand, you know. And I was just super tired. I came out and I was like, oh man, I just got my ass handed to me on a not very difficult day, you know. It was the old leash. The Velcro was wore out and the wave just took it away. And that combination of losing your paddle and your board at the same time it could be fatal. On big open water, the wind can take your board away from you much faster than you can even think about. Well, I've always liked caves, and I've always loved the ocean. I became aware of some of the interesting history of the Neahkahnie Treasure when Doug sat me down and told me the lore, the legends, you know. He's like, there's a cave out there, and it can only be gotten to at super low tides, and it's all this and it's all that. And I said, no, I can go out there any day it's less than 6 feet.
I'm Grant Law. My background all revolves around the ocean. I have a PhD in biological oceanography. Well, I grew up in Oregon. As a young kid interested in natural history, I ended up spending a tremendous amount of time out in the tide pools, hanging out in the rocks, picking up organisms, learning names. Scuba diving along the coast, that was also a strong interest. Started that at 12. This is interesting. I've been very interested in history of treasure hunting in the area and come across a few legends here and there. But this one I wasn't aware of. I had heard about the shipwreck, the beeswax wreck, but I didn't know that there was necessarily a treasure associated with it. So I was pretty excited when I first learned about it. And who I first learned about it was Eric and Doug, who are old friends of mine. When I first heard Eric was using a stand-up paddleboard in that area, I thought, he's a madman. That's crazy. That's so dangerous. Diving in those rocky environments is challenging. I've had limited experiences on the Oregon coast. Twin Rocks, I've had scuba gear out there. Once you get away from the beach, the waves aren't necessarily breaking the way they would in the way people are used to. When you get out to those higher rocks where the sides are steep, as the waves come, the swells, they just rise and fall. So you'll be moved large distances. I developed a strong respect for waves in a rocky environment early on. It can be scary if a wave hits you with a lot of force and knocks you into the rocks that are covered with barnacles. It's easy to get hurt. It's easy to get hurt even without the waves. I threw out some inquiries online to see if I could find any other divers that had done any diving in these areas, but I wasn't coming up with anything. I'm sure someone has at some point, but it's not one of the go-to places that divers in Oregon will typically go to.
Why is that?
I suspect there's a few reasons. Number one, it's a little hard to hump your gear all the way down to the beach and then swim a long distance out to it. There's also the sense that it's very dangerous. If the waves are breaking, it can be. If you get too close to the rocks and a wave breaks, it will throw you up, roll you across the barnacle-encrusted rocks, tear you up. It's no fun. And there are generally safer places to go, so that's where divers go. However, I have a lot of experience recently diving in California. California has a long history of shore diving and diving around rocks. And while there, I picked up those skills and got much more comfortable with it. So coming back up and visiting Cape Falcon with Eric, it felt familiar, and it was not anywhere near as terrifying as I thought it might be based on my experience in the past. It was a very comfortable, recognizable environment. So Eric and I came up with a plan that we would explore the area. He'd already thoroughly explored Cape Falcon and the caves, so he was going to tour me through so I could have a chance to see it. Very much relying on Eric to take me around safely and show me the site. So we entered the water, started moving along the rocks with the goal of him taking me to the cave, the main cave where that large timber was found. This is the cavern just west of the timber cavern. Eric showed me this, and we spent some time looking through the cobbles. We found several pieces of wood that appeared to be quite dense. We thought they might be some of that same hardwood found from the Spanish galleon. Collected them and took them back. There was a surprising amount of it. And there was a lot of garbage as well. I was very excited to see more, though, so I said, let's keep going. And we continued, explored around, saw a few more interesting phenomena. There was an interesting spout. Water spouts are a common feature on the Oregon coast, especially where there's exposed rocks, and occasionally a crack will form in the middle. And when a wave comes in and gets funneled into that crack and hits the back, it makes a spout, like a whale spout. And there was something similar along the rocky paths. We saw water spraying out and continued on and went all the way out to the end of the cape where there is an arch. I was very excited to see that. On the way back from the arch, we noticed that in the back of one of these sea caves was a smaller cave. So, of course, we went to investigate, and peeking through that aperture, we could see that there was a cavern behind it. It doesn't do it in this clip, but this turned out to be another one of these breathing holes, which made it a little intimidating to go up and peep in. I don't know how seriously we considered the possibility, but of course we were worried about getting sucked into the thing. But here is Eric going and peeping in, trying to get a look of what's inside, and then cautiously backing away. I couldn't resist. I thought a little bit about what I was seeing in terms of the breathing behavior of these caverns, and realized that it implied that they were blind, that they did not connect with other parts, other caverns. And if that was the case, then I was assuming that it would be safe to travel into these, that you wouldn't be caught up in any kind of current. So I went ahead and ducked my head down and went in to check it out. Still with a certain amount of anxiety about what was going on in there. Eric came in as well. As you saw, we spotted a nice sea nettle that greeted me as I went in. But we got a chance to explore around the entryway of the cavern a bit, check it out, and see what it was like. The height of the roof was pretty good. It was safe, easy to travel through there without banging your head on anything, and quite beautiful. All right, so my goal here was to get into that breathing hole with my camera and document what it looks like on the inside. And of course, I'm loving all of the things I'm seeing here. We saw that red-eyed jelly as I went down. Plenty of cobbles down there, lots of agates. The rocks nearby are gorgeous. If you've done any tide pooling, you'll recognize a lot of these creatures, but there's just so much more of them in the water. And then there's this gorgeous school of anchovy that's been hanging out with us, exploring around. And of course, wow, the timing was perfect. This is what the breathing process looks like from below, blowing out all of that foam. So I was very excited to see that. So dropping down, I know the direction of the hole, but I'm not quite sure what it's going to be like in there. I expect it's going to be a closed cavern, but on the smaller side. So just edging forward, I'm surprised at how clean this rock is. It's just been blasted smooth. Lots of anemones around, and it's getting darker, so I'm getting into the cavern itself. And I'm looking up, and I'm seeing that mirrored sheen of the surface of the water. Dropping back down, though, I can see we've got plenty of sand that's accumulated inside the cavern. Again, nothing too surprising. Scanning around, looking up the walls. At this point, my eyes see pretty well, but my camera's struggling. I'd like to get up into the cavern, so I'm heading up to the surface. I've got my hand reaching up, and I'm feeling the surface of the water and the top of that cavern just a few inches above. It's not enough room to get in, so I'm repositioning myself, trying to find a good spot where I can get up there. So at this point, I'm breaking the surface, I'm looking up. It's a little too dark. I know my camera needs light, so I'm clumsily reaching up and trying to get my light on. I'll see that in a second here. And there it is. I'm seeing some coralline algae. There must be enough light in there for some of that to grow. But again, I'm impressed with how smooth this rock is. This must be a harder layer that's being undercut. So a softer layer underneath a harder layer. So now that I've shown what it looks like, I'm zipping back out so I can keep it to this one short clip fairly short. Not overly long, so coming out, you can see a little of the surface. We're starting to get back into the light. There's the bottom, and again, I'm going to see if I can spot any interesting organisms as I'm heading up to the surface. Obviously, we're here for treasure, but for me, these animals are my treasure, so I'm always happy to come across them. Coming up towards the surface, I'm going to, yeah, there they are, those little red-eyed medusae. They're so gorgeous, the way they move. Ballet dancers of the sea. And those little spots are actually eye spots, surprisingly. Not very sophisticated eyes. They can detect the difference between light and dark, but it helps them in their lives. So I'll break the surface, and there's that gorgeous intertidal there along the cape, the entrance to the breathing hole. You can see the strata and that fun angle it's at. And panning around, there's the intrepid Eric out on a stand-up paddleboard.
Today was the best, most exciting trip at Short Sands that I've ever had. Just like getting that scuba gear out there on paddle boards. And this is a piece of wood that I found crawling on my belly to the deep depths of not the timber cave, but a cave just west of it that I've called the Octa Cave, because I've gone in there before and there were literally, covered with crab shell. And that's a sign that there's an octopus that lives in that area. The treasure for me is the experience. And if I find something, that would be awesome. If this turns out to be something, that would be awesome. I told Grant if the museum didn't want it, that he could have it. So I was so grateful for him coming out here. I think that enough people have been interested in this for long enough, have been digging holes. I mean, Ed Fire for sure, right? He's not the only one. Last year, I was staying at that hotel in Manzanita, the only one with the pool there. I can't remember what it's called. And I was just chatting up one of the cleaning ladies. And when I told her what I was doing, she looked at me and got kind of looked like she was going to cry. And she said, one of my close friends lost everything looking for this treasure. And I'm like, Ed Fire? And she's like, no. But so he's just the guy we know about. He's just, I've seen people stop, get out of their car, grab their shovel, wrap it up, like try to hide this stuff and like book into, like, I've seen that several times right at that where you go down to Elk Flats Trail. So there are a lot of people around here that know about this. There are not a lot of people that talk about it.